Hi everybody, it's Russ from My Hammers 11. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And then the bell notifications so you're made aware of any time we put new content on. Obviously, we have videos going up daily, but sometimes we might get 2 or 3 up in a day, so you want to be made aware of that. So make sure you hit that bell icon. We've got some mental guests coming up today and across the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we've just posted our 50th guest as well, which was fantastic. And today's guest is brilliant. I'm looking forward to him. He writes for the WestHamTillIDie website. Which he sort of concentrates on maybe more the history side and the traditions of Upton Park. So really, really interesting articles. And obviously his Twitter feed's really good because you know when players' birthdays are and stuff. It's Dan Coker. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Hello, Russ. You all right?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. As a, you know, it's an even weirder time, I think, now. Football's sort of on the horizon. Do you know what I mean? When we didn't have it, it was okay, but now it's there. It's like really close, and things are starting to seem a bit real again now. I'm a bit worried.
Yes, yeah.
It is what it is. It is what it is, isn't it? So it's like, yeah. And
roll with it, yeah.
I know you got to roll with it, and whatever happens, happens. But it's good to see it. I think it'll boost. You know, it's very true when they said they were trying to kick off sport and get sport going as much as possible because that would boost morale of the country. And I think that is the case. You know, we've had the snooker starting. Obviously, people can play golf. We've had the horse racing starting as well, and I think the football will be, particularly because it's on BBC and Prime and everything else. It'll be mental. It's just like the World Cup, as you said before we recorded. It'll just be what it is. Looking forward to it. Anyway,
something to look forward to.
Exactly. Who knows? Who knows? We'll find out. Exactly. Although we do seem to have most of our games on Sky. I noticed the first 3 are on Sky. That's for sure. Being Chelsea at home, Tottenham away and Wolves at home. So some nice games for them.
Nice easy start.
Yeah, exactly. But then, we've got a fully fit squad, haven't we?
We have, for the first game.
Well, until the first, we've still got sort of 2 weeks until we kick off. So who knows what's going to happen in that time. But we can look back, can't we? And that's the idea of the channel, is to talk about memories. Obviously, while we're waiting for everything to kick off, about West Ham and obviously the players that had some influence on you, whether it was positive or negative, as some people have done. It doesn't really matter. But for you, Dan, with your sort of, obviously you spend a lot of time sort of researching the history and stuff like that of West Ham. But for you personally, what was your earliest memory of West Ham? Can you sort of recall?
Yeah, and the earliest memory would have been a pre-season game at Gillingham, which is my local team. My dad's been going to West Ham since the 1960s, so it's kind of always been in the family. But we actually had an interesting moment in that pre-season friendly because we bumped into Ian Bishop and Trevor Morley. The club hadn't been kind of doing coaches, I suppose, to away games at that point, and Bishop and Morley got lost basically on the way to Priestfield, and they had a club car with all the sponsorship on the side as they used to have in those days. And Lido used to have a sponsored Skoda, which he somehow managed to squeeze into. And they were lost. And my dad went up to him and said, "Are you looking for the ground?" and gave him directions. We decided that night we go. That was my first game at Priestfield. We lost 4-1 to lowly Gillingham. So starters, you mean to go on. Yeah. But they were brilliant. They sent some signed photos through the post. And that kind of got me hooked. Really, my first game at Upton Park was a month or so later, I think. We played Man City, September '91 relegation season. Yeah. And it was brilliant. We were sat in the West Upper, and I remember we were not too far away from the director's box. And Dirty Den from EastEnders was there. Leslie Grantham, Eddie Large. It was a big Man City fan who passed away recently. They were both in the director's box. I was really close to them. And it was just, if you kind of have my West Ham support in life as a microcosm, that was it. We went 1-0 down because Colin Foster handballed one on the line and got sent off. We then equalised with an amazing team goal, which started off with Ludo nutmegging Colin Hendry, who was playing up front for him at the time for some reason. I don't know why the centre half he went and played for Blackburn. Kenny Brown got a goal, brilliant volley, and then in the last minute, Ludo let one through his hands, and we ended up losing it 2-1.
That is the microcosm of West Ham, isn't it? That's mental.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's so funny. And I know what you mean about the whole director's box and Dirty Den, and as I say, I remember watching, seeing David Essex coming out of the the West Stand and people like what's his name, Billy Mitchell and you know, Nick Berry, and you're like, wow, oh my God, I'm so cool to be in the same world as these people. But yeah, and as you said, you started as you meant to go on, you know, relegation season, obviously promotion the season after, that was a good year.
Yeah, that was a great season, that one, yeah.
That was brilliant, wasn't it? I mean, that was my first season. So, you know, I was a glory hunter, really, in all true respects. But yeah, that was awesome, that whole season. And, you know, since then, obviously, sort of the early 90s onwards, Dan, you know, you must have had, obviously, lots of experiences, maybe dealing with ex-players and stuff like that for the website and things. What sort of memories sort of stick out as sort of, you know, maybe many things differently than the necessary games? You know, is there any sort of memories or any sort of stories that have sort of stuck out in your career, so to speak, of being a West Ham fan?
Probably the one which sticks out apart from the obvious, you know, last game against Man United, which is probably my favourite memory, would be one where I wasn't at the game, but might have been able to make a difference, which is a bit of a strange one. Remember Manny Omaimni against Aston Villa in the quarter-final? Yeah. I was actually at the game that he played for Gillingham in the League Cup earlier that year. So I knew he was cut-side, and I was going to all the games then, but I think that game, I was on a school trip. We were on an A-level school trip somewhere, and I knew we'd won the game. I knew we'd won it on penalties, you know, kind of kept up with the score. And the next morning I looked at the paper and saw that Omaimni had come on as sub, and I knew at that moment we played a cut-side player, because I'd actually seen him on the pitch at Priestfield playing. I think it was against Bolton for Gillingham. And I just think, you know, if I could have been at that game, like, grabbed hold of a steward, get me down, you know, to the tunnel, he probably wouldn't have listened. To be fair,
what would it be?
It could have changed that moment. I know, yeah. So that one's up there. Playing any game against Man United has always been good over the years. I remember going back to Chapman and Morley, I think, scoring 2 in 2 minutes. Putting us 2-1 up against Man United in front of the North Bank. Was at that game with my dad and my uncle and my cousin. And Paul Ince equalised in the last minute. So again, typical West Ham. Obviously the 94-95 game with Ludo. Dixie smashing that penalty in 1996, I think it was. But yeah, any game against Man United down the years, and obviously culminating in that big game, the last one at the bowling. When we won, that's probably my greatest memory. Although my dad couldn't be at that game, unfortunately, he had work and he couldn't get out of it. He was gutted. So his last game was losing 4-1 against Swansea, unfortunately.
Again,
that was an amazing night.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing night. It was a very I felt very privileged. You know, not only because I was one of the 36,000 people there, you know, considering how many people were outside. But just obviously, you know, the stuff I do. So, you know, being privileged enough to, you know, it was as I said, I've said before in previous videos, you know, walking around the ground, you know, during the morning, and there was no bugger in there. And, you know, just walking around the changing rooms and sitting where I used to sit, like several times. Obviously, you move around when you was a season ticket holder. You know, we was in the East Stand, and then we moved to what was the family enclosure, you know, Centenary Upper, and yeah, just walking around and just taking in the place really. And it was an amazing day, wasn't it? Amazing evening, stressful. Yeah. Because obviously the game, but you know, then I was next door to all the guys doing the production afterwards, and Billy didn't turn up, and he turned around and went home, and you know, it's like, and then obviously everything got delayed, didn't it? So we had to put the fireworks on at the beginning, not at the end. So it's like, you know, but it's just the way it was. But it's the West Ham way, isn't it? It's just like you make do as you go along. So
even going 2-1 down was so West Ham.
Exactly. But as you said, again, you talk about that microcosm of your first home game there. That was a microcosm of the West Ham. You know, as you said, Man United always turned up against the better teams, went down, but dug in when it really, really mattered. We seemed to always produce something. And it was an amazing day. And yeah, as you said, that you're right. United games, we always seem to be a bit special. Not so much, I think, now, because that sort of the shine's come off a little bit of Man United, where they were obviously during the sort of when we were, in sort of the 90s. But no, it's and they always seem beatable, don't they? Whereas, you know, when you turn up with like Liverpool, you know, at the moment, you know, it's like they're just you just turn up for the numbers, really, in all honesty, at the moment, because they're just so up and above everyone else. But it is what it is, and we carry on plugging away. One day. So in terms of the Hammers 11 idea, so as I said, we're asking people about their Hammers 11. We try and keep it to a 4-4-2, which isn't a problem for us. I think people of our generation, the older generation, as I said, I've learned what an inside half is, a left forward, all these terms I've never heard of before. So, it's interesting. It's quite sort of a learning process. The second rule is you have to be alive to have seen them play. So obviously you report on some of the greatest players who have played for West Ham through West Ham Till I Die, through the history stuff, but obviously you didn't see them. So you couldn't put Bobby Moorings, for example, or Jeff Peters, Martin Peters and Jeff Hurst. Cry. Who's Jeff Peters right here? So we couldn't put in Jeff Hurst, but we could put in Guillermo Franco, for example. That seems a similar sort of yin and yang. And the third one is you can talk about whoever you want. It doesn't have to be the best players. And to be honest, most of people's 11, if you put the 11 out on the pitch, they might not be the best players, but for that person, they were their favourite players, or the players they hated the most, or the players they might have shouted at the most, or had the best chance. It really doesn't matter, to be honest, Dan. It's nice to get people's vision. We've had about 120 different names have appeared so far, which isn't bad considering this type of thing. Obviously you can imagine a few favourites emerging, but we've had two people say Paul Ince, for example, we've had some interesting ones as well. Raz Van Rat appeared in one.
Right.
Raz Van Rat came out in Charlie Walsh's one from Hammers Chat because he wore a Christmas onesie for the Christmas catalogue. And that was why, little things like that. So in terms
that's all anyone remembers him for.
Exactly. Well, I think so, yeah. In terms of the Dan 11, who would be between the sticks for your team, Dan?
Okay, we've been blessed with a lot of really good goalkeepers, I think, over the last 30 years or so. And a lot of them kind of have ended up winning the Hammer of the Year as well. Fabianski, Hislop, Ludo, Greeno, etc. For me, it came down to between two different goalkeepers. Ludo, I think, played almost every game for the first 6.5 years of me going to West Ham. So he's kind of intrinsically linked to my West Ham past and my childhood. But I'm going to give it to Rob Green. Greeno was absolutely fantastic for us. I know that he obviously had the big mistake for England in 2010, but for me, I don't remember that. I remember the brilliant performances he put in for us week in, week out. I think he saved 8 penalties for us in about 6 seasons, which is incredible. I think he saved 3 in a row. The one that sticks out to me was the one from Defoe in that last, I think it was 93rd minute or something against Tottenham, when he sits on the post. And it's not necessarily a save that I remember that for. It was when the ball came back in, it just looped up in the air and he just caught it, fell on the ground, everyone's cheering. And that's one of my favourite Greeno memories. I think another one would be, we played away at Barnsley, and I was behind the goal at Barnsley. And we were all singing, number 1 is Robert Green, number 2 is Robert Green. We're all dreaming of a team of Robert Greens. And he was stood with his back to us, just counting them out, 1, 2, 3, just counting along with 4 up. And he was such a character as well. I think people don't really get that about Rob Green sometimes. But he was a fantastic character, and we really latch onto that, I think, to West Ham fans with our goalkeeper. So Greeno between the sticks for me, I think, great goalkeeper.
Good chat. He doesn't take him, and I think when he had England number 6 stitched on his gloves and stuff like that, he didn't take himself seriously, and I think that's something which is lost in the modern game. Everyone's so serious now because it's such an uber professional, uber money sport, so it's almost like they can't take themselves. They have to take themselves very seriously. And as you said, Greeno was a good. I mean, you see all the stuff he does on his Twitter. That he was obviously won the European Cup with Chelsea. And like, I think it's brilliant. I love Greeno. He's a good laugh, right? Yeah, and he did. Yeah, fair. Yes, I mean he did. So fair play to him. Okay, put Greeno between the sticks. It's a nice shout, I think. Who should we have left back?
Okay, so left back. Special mentions for Aaron Cresswell. I'm a big fan of Cressy. George McCartney, I thought, was a really solid left back, but there's only one that I can put in, and that's Julian Dix.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant player for us. obviously he's got that kind of hard man tag, and he likes to tackle, I think it's fair to say. Brilliant penalty taker, but a really good footballer as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic pass for the ball, over 30, 40, 50 yards as well. Great left foot. And probably my childhood era at West Ham, the one who kind of stood up. We had some really good players, but I think he's the one that kind of stood out above the rest as well.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic player. Penalties, and not just smashing those penalties in at 100 mile an hour as he used to, but that free kick against Forest, I think in '95, where he just curled it over the wall with his left foot. Yeah. A bit of finesse in there as well as a fierce shot.
Definitely, and he scored his fair few headers and corners as well. Used to watching a lot of the high end of season reviews over again, and he didn't realize how many headers he scored and how he came forward for corners. But there's not really much you can say about him. He was my hero, and that was we're similar ages, and he was my Mr. West Ham. He was my Billy Bonds really, because I wasn't around to see Billy in that era. So put Julian in. Yeah, that's pretty much nailed on position for everyone, I think. But it needs to be said. Yeah, he is. Although Razvan Rak comes close second, and Vladimir Labant. Right, so we'll put Dixie at left back. Who's going to go right back?
Okay, right back is probably the one I struggle with the most, to be honest. I think looking back over the last 10 years, I think we've only spent £3.7 million on a right back, and that was Sam Byram. I think all the other right backs we've had have been freebies or loan signings, and no one really stands out. Zabaleta was a fantastic player for Man City, but he was never kind of really going to recreate that form for us as good as he has been for us. I think the last really good right back we had was probably Lucas Neal. I think he doesn't get much of a shout for the great escape. I think he came in that Tottenham game we lost 4-3. He'd had a couple of matches before when he got injured. He came back for that game against Tottenham and then was in for the rest of the season. And his leadership was really important, I think. But it's between two for me again for right back. Sebastian Schemmel was a really good player for us. I thought, getting forward in that 2001-2 season to win Hammer of the year we finished 7th, was a really good accolade for him, I think. But I'm going to give it to Timmy Breaker, just because of longevity, really. He was a great player to watch. I used to enjoy watching him bomb on down the wing. He was a great overlapping fullback, got forward, good crossing him. He used to score his fair share of goals. I think he got 8 goals for us. The one against Oxford stands out in that 92-93 season where he cut inside, cut outside, and then just looped it over the goalkeeper. Really enthusiastic player. I remember his warm-ups were mad as well, Timmy Breaker. He used to just stretch in these kind of really weird positions with his hamstrings. He used to get a few hamstring injuries, I think, so he used to have to look after those. But actually, he was the first player I had on the back of my shirt. And I mean, this is kind of typical West Ham as well, the old porter cabin that used to get the shirts from outside the West Ham. And I had the shirt done, and they gave it back to me, and they'd spelled his name wrong. They put K-E-R at the end instead of C-K-E-R. So we had to get it back to them and get it done again. So they ruined that shirt. That probably cost them a few quid then. He was a great player for us over a few seasons. So Timmy Breaker just ahead of Sebastian Schemmel for me.
No, it's a good shout, that was, remember the Oxford game? It was 5-3, wasn't it? And Oxford scored within like a minute, if I remember, because that was probably my first game, and so I remember that game. But then Oxford had scored after a minute. So again, typical West Ham, and I remember Julian scoring a thumper as well that game. Right, we'll put Timmy Breaker in. Good shout. Let's go centre backs then. Dan, who's your first centre back?
We've had so many good centre backs over the years. So many. Certainly over the time that I've been watching, and that's even without counting Bobby Moore. So the two I'm going to give it to, Rio Ferdinand's my first one to go in. I'm pretty sure Harry Redknapp would describe him as a Rolls Royce of a centre half. Just class. Quick, fantastic on the ball, skillful. I remember him doing kind of pirouettes on the ball, getting himself out of trouble in centre half on the edge of his own box. And he was really exciting when he broke through, and I remember thinking at the time, this lad's going to be a fantastic player. He was. For the other position, there's so many possible. Stevie Potts, I used to love watching Stevie Potts when I was younger. missed a consistency, hardly ever missed a game. Tony Gale was a great player. Slav was brilliant. Mark Reaper, Ian Pearce. And more recently, obviously, the Ginger Pele. Winston Reid was a great servant for us. But I'm going to give it to Alvin Martin.
Yeah.
I think his best days at West Ham were probably before I started going in 1991. But you could still see, even when he was into his 30s, what a class actor he was. And I like the fact that in Rio and Alvin, I've got two players there who are good on the ball and can bring it out of defence. Good in the air as well, the pair of them. But I want football in centre halves for the pair of them. So Rio and Stretch are in there.
It's a good shout. No, that's that. You're definitely right, and I think that's a fair pairing as well. And I think you're right. Of it's weird, isn't it? It's like we seem to have gone like full circle. It used to be, in Bobby's era, so to speak, he was a ball playing centre half, skillful, pinged the ball. Then there was a period I thought sort of maybe towards the end of Alvin's career, so to speak, where it was more blockers. I'm thinking sort of we had like Neil Ruddock and Reapy wouldn't say was a cultured player, he was just like solid, and now we're going back to the sort of as you said, like everyone wants that ball playing centre half, don't they? We rested our hopes on John Stones at once, as being that sort of, and it's funny how everything goes cyclical. So it's back to sort of the playing from the back, and he's obviously Klopp and Guardiola have sort of brought that, instilled that in, that sort of foreign mentality. But no, it's a good shout, I think. Yeah, good pairing. Nice. Well, that's defence done. Let's go left wing then, Dan. Who got left wing for you, man?
I love a winger. Someone who can take on a fullback, get past their defender, get to the byline, put a crossing, bit of pace, get the crowd going. So I really like the wingers. I used to love watching Matty Jones when I was younger. Real try, Matty, and a good player as well. Another Matty Etherington. I used to love watching Etherington play for us. But I've got to go with probably the best player in terms of skill and talent that I've seen in a West Ham shirt, and that's Dimitri Payet.
Yep.
Just, even though it was just for a season and a half, if you could pick a season where you wanted a player to be absolutely outstanding, it was that last one at Upton Park. And he graced the place, and he gave it the send-off that it deserves, I think. When you get a free kick 5, 10, sometimes even 15 yards outside the penalty area, and you're pretty confident it's going to go in the net, you've got a special player on your hands. And I know he left under a cloud, but I remember everything that he kind of did for us before then. Even when we've been at London Stadium, the assist with the Rabona against Watford, and the fantastic goal against Middlesbrough where he took on their whole defensive midfield pretty much and
twice,
put it in the net. Even that second season, even that second season, he was still turning it on, and just an incredible player. We don't get too many Ballon d'Or nominees either at West Ham, so
exactly.
Jimmy's on the left.
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
mate,
good shot.
But
yeah, I know what you mean. I love, and it's and it's one of those things where you don't get that sort of left winger or right winger who just bombs it down the wing anymore. And it's and thinking about it, it's so simple, just bombing, get the quickest play you can, put him on the left, he beats the right back and chips it in. As long as you've got like a decent centre forward rather. It's just such an easy game football can be, but I think we overcomplicate it. But yeah, Payet was, I don't think, well, in my lifetime, I don't think a player had made such an impact so early on. Usually, we get one and there were a couple of games, 3 or 4 games to bed themselves in. Literally from the first game, he was on it and you knew he was going to be mustard. And there was nothing of him, really. He was a stumpy little bloke, really. He wasn't blessed with pace. Really, he was like a little stumpy bloke. Best wasn't the quickest thing in the world, but he just had this amazing talent to just beat men almost standing still, but there was no real pace. It was almost he stood still and then would do a trick, or as you said, a turn or a flick round, or his that double thing on his feet, and just beat players just with trickery. And as you said, we don't get that very often. Once or twice in a lifetime, I think I've seen players like that. But yeah, lovely shot. Okay, we'll put Dimmy in. Who should we go on the right wing position then, down other side?
Right wing, I've gone Trevor Sinclair.
Yep.
Just pace, goals. You were just saying there about Payet kind of hitting the ground running. I think Tricky Trev scored 2 on his first game, on his debut for us. I used to love watching players like Yossi Benayoun as well. You know, Yossi was fantastic for us, and that 92-93 season we had Keane and Robson on either wing. That they were both fantastic wingers as well. But Sinclair, I think, just great player for us. Played in the 2002 World Cup. I think he actually asked Glenn Roeder if he could play that previous season on the left wing, so he could try and make that England place his own on that left side as well. Great player for us. Scored goals with his head, even though he wasn't the tallest. Scored spectacular goals, one against Charlton on Boxing Day where he smashed it in from about 35 yards, the overhead kick against Derby, and I think that was on Boxing Day as well. Two successive Boxing Days, he scored outstanding goal of the season contenders on. Wonderful player to watch.
Yeah, he was great. I liked Sinclair. He was just like he was a real, when he was on form, he was like unplayable. He's a bit similar to how, not stature wise, but you know when Antonio has got the bit between his teeth, and I know he's different builds, but literally just pace and would just, and when he was on form, Trevor was brilliant. He was a brilliant player, and I don't think he got as much credit as he deserved, particularly. I mean, obviously, to be fair, he played like 13, 14 games for England in that period. He'd sort of, obviously got into the World Cup squad. Was it via a few people got injured? But he was, I loved him. I loved Trevor. I thought he was a great player. And so did my granddad, God rest his soul. He was,
good taste.
His eyesight was going, bless him. And so anyone at West Ham who was black who did anything good was Sinclair. It was like, oh, there we go. That's Sinclair again. No, Grandad, that was Jermaine Defoe, doesn't it? That's how it worked with him, bless him. Tricky Trev on the right. Nice. Okay, let's go into the midfield then, Dan. Who's your first central midfield player?
Again, this was a real tough one as well because we've had so many good central midfielders. So I'll go with my shoe-in first, and that's Joey Cole.
Yep.
I've rarely been more excited to see a player come into the West Ham team than Joe Cole from the youth team anyway. I remember that the 6-0 win over Coventry in the Youth Cup final. We were up in the Bobby Moore stand for that one. And he was fantastic in that one. To be fair though, he wasn't even the best player on the pitch that game. That was Michael Carrick. Carrick was incredible in that game as well. But Joe Cole, flair player, tricks, flicks, had a goal in him as well. Probably played his best, more disciplined football at Chelsea, so I don't think we really saw the best of him. But in terms of the excitement that I felt when I was going to West Ham to watch a game, and who I was excited to go and see, it's probably Joe Cole. And that follows on from when he came back for his second spell. He didn't have a great time at Liverpool, but when he came back, I was just delighted to have him back on board.
Yeah, so, there's something about having a West Ham boy playing for West Ham, isn't it? It's like it's one of those things where I don't know. It's like. Joe, bless him. Joe, everyone was excited from the age of about 13 when he was 13, that there's this guy coming who's basically going to be absolutely well beaten. And I think although he probably had his best success playing the more disciplined in Chelsea, he played a more disciplined position on the, sort of the left, and obviously England he played on the left as well, really, didn't he? I think he was most exciting when he was on the free roll, so to speak, at West Ham, like that final, when he was just doing those pirouettes for fun, against a decent Coventry youth team. Chris Kirkland was in goal for them, I believe, at the time. And they put, was it 8-0 aggregate, 9-0 aggregate, something like that. It was just
9, I think,
yeah. We had Bertie Brayley on right at the early beginning of the channel, and he was like, he couldn't speak highly of Joe Cole, in terms, because obviously he played with him, didn't he, in the youth team. So, well, I think the story goes that he said that on his first training session with the first team, him and Joe's together, was when John Hartson and E.R. Berkovic had a little 2-8, and that was his last first team training session with them. So it's like, good, such a West Ham. All these stories are going. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, who's Joe going to partner?
To the first team.
I know, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right, off you go. Harry sent him away straight away. So who's Joe going to partner in midfield then, Dan?
This one was really difficult, and I was kind of umming and ahhing between two really. One was kind of more of a personal attachment, but I've gone for someone who I think could play really well with Joe Cole, and that's Scotty Parker.
Yeah.
So I mean, Parker, I don't think really gets, although he did at the time, I don't really think he gets, looking back, the kudos that he should. He carried West Ham, I think, for probably about three
seasons,
years, along with Mark Noble and Robert Green. I think those three pretty much carried us. That they were superb. I think for a player to win the Football Writers Player of the Year award when you finished bottom and got relegated, there must have been something special about that particular player that season, and he was amazing for us. I think not just the fact that he won Hammer of the Year 3 times in a row, not just the fact that he was such a great player for us, but the commitment he showed to the club as well. I think he played hours after the death of his father at Tottenham, at White Hart Lane, the year we got relegated. He scored some fantastic goals for us. The one against Wigan, which kept us up, was brilliant. Just slamming that one in the corner, typical Scotty Parker. And it was such a shame that he had to go. I can completely understand why he left us. He wanted to stay in the area. He wanted to play for England in what would probably be his only tournament. And it turned out to be the case that Euro 2012 was his only tournament. So I can understand why he went to Tottenham. But I don't think that should diminish from what an incredible player he was for us.
No, you shouldn't. And as I said, Hammer of the Year 3 times in a row. You know, as your Football Writers Year, player of the season on the year we went down. I don't think that's ever happened before. And yeah, there were some games in it where literally it was almost like he pulled his socks up and went, right, I'm going to do it. I'll do it myself. You know, and you had that sense of him. And he used to love doing a Scotty turn, didn't he? Where he stick his arse out and do. It was so fun. No, he was a great player, and you know, and obviously I don't think credit goes to Scott either in terms of how arguably he helped develop Mark Noble as a player and as a captain, because Mark was like the deputy, so to speak, to Scotty Parker when Scott was playing. And now it's almost like, you know, Groundhog Day. Deck is almost like the deputy to Mark Noble, and hopefully that will continue. And Deck will then have another young guy to deputy to be the senior man. But he's brilliant now. Scotty Parker was great, and I think you're right. I think the fact he went to Tottenham shouldn't diminish the fact. I mean, you know, we've got Pyatt in there, and Pyatt's in a lot of people's teams, and he only had one bit seasons with us, and arguably Scott Parker, as a team man, as a captain, was a lot more influential. But we'll put Scotty.
He just edged out Ian Bishop for me.
Oh, good old Bish.
I love watching Bish play, but I needed someone in there who's going to be. Bish could put his foot in, but I think Scotty could do it with a bit more regularity and maybe a bit more success.
Sure.
Sorry, Bish. As much as I love watching Bish play, and what a passer he was, and it was a massive influence on the way that I played. Actually, when I was a kid, I used to love watching Bish. But Scotty Parker.
That's good. All right, let's go up front then, Dan. Who you've got your striker? Who's your first striker?
First striker again, like Alvin Martin at the back. He's probably someone who had his better days before I started going to games. But I'm going to go Tony Cottee as my first striker. We'd had some great strikers actually in the first couple of years when I was going. Trevor Morley and Clive Allen had that brilliant partnership in 92, 93. But when Cottee signed it, we had an out-and-out goal scorer, poacher, which apart from Clive Allen, that first kind of half season in 92, 93 when he was fit, it was really exciting to see TC come back. So Cottee gets the nod for me up front. We had so many good strikers. I think there was one season, I think it was 2006-07, where we had 6 of them. We had Sheringham, Zamora, Harewood, Tevez, Carlton Cole, and Dean Ashton. Well, obviously Dino didn't play that year because of injury. No, but there's some of the best strikers we've had.
Yeah, that weren't a bad strikers, was it? Jesus. That was amazing.
Didn't have much to choose from, do they?
No, exactly. Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, no, it's I mean, Cottee, as you said, club legend. Be on the channel soon. We've got TC. He's on soon. As a spoiler. So yeah, TC. Who's TC going to partner up front then?
I'm denied over this one as well, really, because I quite like the idea of a big man, little man combination. Yeah. So, you know, John Hart's and Dean Ashton were kind of being considered. But I'm going to go with Flair again. So it's got to be Paolo Di Canio. I can't leave him out.
No.
considering the circumstances he joined us as well, maybe he wouldn't have joined us if he hadn't pushed that referee over. But considering he hadn't played for a few months, he hit the ground running. Although he was only with us for that second half of the season, we finished 5th. He was instrumental that year. Yeah. And the year after is probably, along with Payet, the biggest impact I've seen any individual West Ham player have. I think he should have been Premier League Player of the Year in 99-2000. He was that good. Fantastic goals. Obviously, the one against Wimbledon stands out, but he scored that free kick against Watford from almost on the touchline as well. So, yeah, just the two against Arsenal when he completely bamboozled Kieran and Adams and David Seaman, who are 3 of the best defensive players of the country seen in the last 20 or 30 years, and he made them look like mugs. Just an incredible player again.
It was, wasn't it? And it's been said lots of times on this channel, but every time it's true. Yeah, the man was an entertainer, and at the end of the day, that's what West Ham fans want to be. They want to be entertained. We're realistic that we're never going to win the title unless a sheikh takes us over. Because that's the level of investment you need in the Premier League to win the title. The likes of Leicester were one-offs, were exceptions to the rule. We just want to be entertained, and Paolo was just box office. The man was crazy and he was frustrating, but then he'd be mesmeric. And you'd go to a game excited, a bit like with Payet. You'd go to excited to see what he was going to do. Even more so with Paolo, because not only there's skill, but who's he going to piss off? Who's he going to, how many times is he going to throw himself on the floor and wanted to be substituted? And he was just brilliant. And he just got the West Ham fans. And that's what the fans want. They want an emotional connection. Someone made a good point in one of the videos. You watch soap operas for the characters, not for the stories. The stories change, but the characters are what draw you in. And that is so true. You've got your 11 characters that you'd want to see, and if the story doesn't happen the way it usually happens to West Ham, we might be losing or draw. As long as those characters are still there and you're happy to see the characters and be entertained by them, that's all that matters, I think. Yeah. And maybe all of this things that's gone on might reset expectations and people be more appreciative of football as a form of entertainment rather than slagging everyone off because Moyes is brought on a sub too early or whatever. The fact is we haven't had football for 100 days. It's like anything's better than nothing. Do you know what I mean? But
I remember Trevor Brookins saying once that when you go to West Ham, you just don't know what you're going to get. We could be brilliant, we could be dreadful. And I think if you look at some of the players that are in my team there with Di Canio and Joey Cole and Sinclair Payet, you're going to be entertained. Almost whether we get beat or whether we turn it on and thrash someone 4 or 5-0, there's going to be some entertainment value in there.
Exactly. As I said, it'll probably, as with many teams of that sort of ilk where you've got a lot of flair, you'd be first on match of the day.
Yes.
I think it's good.
Well, you should be anyway.
Yeah, you should be, yeah. Dan, it's been absolutely brilliant, man. Thank you so much for chatting. It's been good fun. No, absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. And obviously, thank you for watching, everybody. Obviously, like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. Watch loads of them. There's over 50 on there now. It's absolutely mental. And I appreciate everyone's support of the channel and stuff. And until next time, guys, from me and Dan, take care and stay safe, everyone. See ya. Bye-bye.